Swarbrick and Nick Ferrari here to discuss today's top stories. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Nick.
Well, it's obvious where we're going to start. The Partygate findings just breaking. The Privilege Committee has released its findings on whether the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson lied to MPs over Partygate. The committee has concluded Boris Johnson deliberately misled the House of Commons, committing a serious contempt as he obstructed the normal functions of Parliament. Tom, let's start with you. This is pretty unprecedented.
It is unprecedented. This is a 90-day suspension, so this is 3 times greater than what previously was expected for Boris Johnson to receive from MPs. That, as you say, he misled the House and the committee multiple times, and that officials did not advise him, as he suggested in this committee, that social distancing guidelines had been followed whilst in number 10. Committee's come to the conclusion he knew that, he was told that, and yet he told both the House and the committee that they were followed at all times in Downing Street. Boris Johnson has always held MPs of this nature with some degree of derision. He's always thought that they're self-important, preening, rather too pleased with themselves. But they do have power, and they've had the power to suspend him. He has come out with the most blistering statement I think I've ever read of any politician, certainly from a former Prime Minister, saying these people are liars, they are a kangaroo court, and one of the MPs on the committee, a Conservative, should resign for hypocrisy over allegations that this MP also held non-socially distanced drinks events whilst the guidelines were in place. So this is Tory psychodrama on steroids. Whether people feel that this is the biggest issue in the country right now, given everything going on, I'm not so sure.
Well, Nick, let's come to you. What do you think about this? I mean, there are still MPs who are defending Boris. What does this mean for the future, really, of sort of infighting within the Conservative Party?
Yes, I think Tom's right, and good morning to you both. This will just add yet more fuel to the flames of the Tory civil war, and clearly Boris isn't going without a fight. It is, as you rightly say, pretty unprecedented. I think it's been made worse. If you look at the wordings, I think something's been added quite late, because they say that the former Prime Minister's behaviour undermined the power of the committee. I think that refers to his resignation speech on Friday, June the 9th. Why was that so important? Well, I think, as Tom referenced, if there had been a 10-day suspension or greater, that would have triggered a by-election. Boris Johnson didn't want to hang around for that, Holly. He decided, up with this, I will not put, and he got out. And I think the fact that he did that, and that he's already called it a kangaroo court, and as Tom rightly says, he goes even further in the latest statement, he's picked up extra punishment for that. What I would say is a little bit churlish, and I don't know what you all think of this, he's also going to have his parliamentary pass suspended. Now, this has to be voted on next week by the House of Commons, but this almost certainly will mean that he will go along with very, very few. The last one that I can remember is Sir John Bercow, and this means even as a former Prime Minister now, he would not actually have this pass to enter what's called the parliamentary estate. I would argue that, to a point, is a little bit churlish, and it does, of course, support the idea you might see this come back in months to come as almost an attempt of martyrdom of one Boris Johnson.
I mean, I think we're pretty much seeing that now, aren't we, Nick? I mean, how damaging do you think this is? If people are reading a headline and people are just reading what Boris is saying, how damaging is that to the process, to our democratic institutions?
Very damaging. I think it's... I think the calls I've just been taken... Let me explain, Dem. The calls I've just been taken, I have had listeners in tears because the loss of, in one instance, their mum, and the loss of another instance, their grandmother, has now been brought back to them. Because while these parties were going on, they were not able to say goodbye to their mother or their grandmother. If you have that level of desperately, desperately close and tragic personal involvement, not only does it damage the democratic process, it probably damages your faith in any form of politics. And that is why this is so keenly felt. Boris Johnson, we can now say, misled Parliament. Obviously, there had to be a sanction for that. I would argue that this, for me, is a little over the top. And as you rightly say, he is such a potent force. Love or loathe him, and I don't think there's any in-between. I think it is love, and I think it is love or loathe him. He is not going to go away forever. He'll pop up in a British newspaper. There's even suggestions he might pop up on a US TV network. He'll pop up somewhere. He'll be a commentator, and a thorn in the side for some time. And then, was it Arnold Schwarzenegger? He'll be back. There's no doubt about it.
Final word.
I just think that if Boris Johnson feels that this is a complete lie, this is a charade, a kangaroo court out to get him, come on then, fight it. He's quit, he's given up. These people did not decide whether Boris Johnson sits as MP. It's just whether he gets a suspension from Parliament, whether there's a by-election. There are so many hoops that Boris Johnson would have to fall through in order to have been ejected from Parliament, and it would be, by the way, by the people. I thought this man was a fighter. come on, fight.
So why do you
And
think he's
quit.
not then?
Well, because I think partly he's trying to take the narrative back.
Right.
That this isn't him being dragged through the mud. He's taking the sort of principled decision to resign based on what they've said. And I don't think he wants
lose.
it. And I think he'll lose.
And
Yeah,
he
I
might
think-
lose.
It's pure Trumpian
Yeah.
as well, isn't it? The playbook, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you said, I've got a quote here, 30th of March, I have the utmost respect for the integrity of the committee, Boris Johnson. Fast forward to today, it is the very definition of a kangaroo court.
Yeah. Let's move on to something. God, it was really hard to watch, but absolute hearts went out to the friends and family members of the students who 2 days ago in Nottingham had their lives sadly taken away from them. This was the father of the victim, Grace O'Malley Kumar, and the father of Barnaby Webber, David. They both had the strength. I mean, it's quite incredible what humans are capable of to speak at the vigil, and this is what they said. My gosh, I mean, it's hard to watch, and you can see the pain that family is going through at the moment. But really what struck me there is that moment when he says, look after each other, even when going through so extraordinary loss themselves, looking out to the other people and saying, you guys look after each other.
I went home and gave my kids a very big hug after that last
Yeah.
night, because I just think, and you sort of feel a little bit guilty because you know that there are three families that can't hug their loved ones after that, and can't tell them how much they love them, and can't share in their joy when they've got into the Nottingham University cricket team or they're playing hockey for England. And it's just, how do you start to come to terms with that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It was an extraordinary moment, wasn't it? It was just, you know, and we've all been through grief, but never, obviously, we can't compare to this. It's just obviously so tragic and immediate. And to be able to have the wherewithal to speak so articulately with such compassion when you have that gut-wrenching grief and the fog that you live through as well. It was an incredible thing to witness.
So as parents, there are always these key dates, aren't they? The first time you allow your child to walk down to the corner shop, but in fact you're walking behind the hedge and you're making sure and you're watching. The first time possibly they take a bicycle out and you want to make sure. Speaking as someone who's had two children who've gone through university, I'm possibly the only one because I'm considerably older. When your child leaves, and I know they go away on holiday with their mates, I get all of that and whatever. When you say goodbye to your son, or in my case, my sons or your daughter, son or daughter, it is one of those key moments in life because you cannot help but worry. They could be the best kid, mixing with the best kids, but they are going to be away from you for month after month after month. And a part of your heart goes with them. I tell you, a part of my heart went with each of my sons. So to see those two dads in Nottingham yesterday having to use language that I wouldn't be able to think of because, my friends, I wouldn't be able to carry on working if something like happened.
No, I
think
agree.
we have to put such credit to those men.
Losing a child is not the natural order of life, but losing a family member is still incredibly painful. And yesterday, also, 65-year-old caretaker Ian Coates was also killed. He worked at Huntingdon Academy. He was believed to be going on his way to work there. His son has said that he was due to retire in 4 months. This is a man that has worked his whole entire life and has just been looking forward to having that time to retire, to finally step back and relax. I mean, just horrible. Just horrible. Sorry.
There's an update as well. The recent CCTV also shows the man who's believed to be the suspect trying to break into a shelter for homeless people. Resident Trevor woke up and punched him, sending him stumbling into the ground. Has thought he saved 50 lives, which is...
I mean, astonishing. The CCTV... I mean, what I can't get past, and I've watched that a number of times now, is how calm this guy seems, who is, you know, slaughtering people.
Yeah.
And he just tries to get into it, and then he walks off, and then he goes and steals it. It is unthinkable what has happened there. And as Nick says, you know, the ability that those two men found in particular to speak in front of hundreds of students who are also in pieces because of what has happened, I couldn't do it.
No.
I couldn't do it.
No, I agree. Thank you both. Let's pause there for now. Still